I'm happy to be here. I was going to run through, we've got about 50 minutes, just run through a little bit about what we do at Intelygenz. I'll try knowing what you guys do I normally do a short, as Nikki knows, I do a short brief intro to what we do just to set the context. But most of the time I just want to give you some examples of the kinds of things that we apply our technology to and some of the case studies we do. Given that there's marketing on the call, I'll use a couple of case studies that I've got slides for and some others that I'll just talk off the back of slides and try and keep it marketing focused. But I'll give you a couple of different examples just to show you that for us, you'll see that everything from solar system resolution to CRM prediction, purchase predictions look pretty similar to us. I know it sounds crazy, but they look pretty similar to us because we're all about finding answers in data and being able to answer very, very valuable questions for our clients using the data and using artificial intelligence techniques that we apply over the top of their data to answer those questions. So whenever I'm going through anything, if you're thinking in your head, if I could answer this for my business, it would be the most valuable thing ever, then that's really all we need you to think about, and then we can bring the technology to start to answer those questions for a business. So let me kick off. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit behind today, so let me just pull up the presentation. I've been jumping from one thing to another. So let me just do this. I'm not going to use this whole deck. You'll be pleased to know. Let's use this though. Can you guys see that? So I'm just going to do one confirmation, so my knowledge. So Intersport is a brand and process franchise where the dealers are independent. You guys are all independent business owners, and Intersport help you with branding and process equipment. What does the relationship look like in terms of what Intersport provides for each business owner? Can someone help me understand that?
You mean if you talk about relationship, the dealers own Intersport, if that is the case.
So the dealers own Intersport?
Yeah, they have kind of shares in it.
Ah, okay.
So if you're an Intersport dealer, you own a part of Intersport.
Oh, I got it. No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. So it's a partner program where every person that is Intersport is a partner within the company and shares the overheads of running and marketing and all of those pieces. Okay. No, I didn't know that. So it's beyond a franchise. It's actually a partnership owner program. Got it. Okay, thanks. Good information. So let me tell you a little bit about Intelygenz, just to set some context. We are a company that's 18 years old. We were founded in Madrid in 2002. We're still headquartered in Madrid. We have offices in the west coast of the US and 2 offices in Madrid now because we're growing. Actually, 3 offices in Madrid. We've been in the US since 2012, so we're coming up for nearly 10 years. So 8 years in the US and 18 years overall as a company. We were founded by 4 guys, 3 Spaniards and a French guy. And we're still wholly owned by the same four founders. About 160 people, so not a huge organization, maybe 180 if we count today. We're growing pretty fast. About 160, 180 people. And for 18 years, we've been delivering production software to pretty much large enterprise clients for the last 18 years. We added artificial intelligence 5 years ago, nearly 6 now, nearly 6 years ago. We started to look at AI and moving AI out of the labs and into production and how we could add that to our technical capability. 6 years ago was very ambitious. moving AI out of the lab and into production. So being able to deploy real, genuine, in production artificial intelligence solutions is still very difficult. There's a number of studies actually, that Deloitte's, the KPMGs of the world. About 14% of artificial intelligence projects ever make it into production. That's a significant rise over the last 2 years. It was down at about 4%. We're now at about 14% of artificial intelligence projects reaching production. Imagine inside there, you've got the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebooks, all the West Coast tech guys that are propping up that number. And we're super proud that our clients are part of that 14% where we're putting AI into production. Now, having AI in the lab is good, right? You can learn a lot from having in pre-production and laboratory experiments on artificial intelligence. You can train engineers. I can tell you can create a hell of a lot of marketing. Huge TV advertising campaigns based on AI that never made it into production if you're Microsoft or any of these guys, right? But if you want to extract genuine, true value from artificial intelligence, you've got to get it into production. And that's what we do here at Intelygenz. So, I'll try and just use the clicker rather than use the mouse wheel. So the kinds of clients that we deal with. So just to give you an idea, you'll see that we're not very industry specific. And you'll see that, like I talked about with our examples, for us, it's about the underlying technology capability of what we can do with data. So whether we're applying that to a bank, whether we're applying that to a sound application for Dolby, whether we're applying that to a telecoms application for Metel, to a marketing and communications applications for MTV or Disney, it doesn't really matter to us from a technology or from a delivery point of view. It matters in being able to convey our message of what we do, because we can't say, oh, we're absolutely primed for the automotive industry or we're primed for the marketing industry, because we deal in data and finding answers from data. So we deploy things. So we've done everything from the back end of banking systems to sound applications for Dolby to ticketing applications for telcos. We're all over the map, but we generally tend to deliver to organizations that are significantly bigger than we are, and a lot in retail as well. I didn't mention retail, but we do a lot in retail. So we have all of the ordering process, the reverse logistics process, the security compliance for a enormous, probably the world's largest global brick and mortar retailer outside of Walmart, right? It isn't Walmart, but other than that, if you imagine the next one where you probably buy a lot of your clothes from, then we deal with all of their ordering process. So we work on very large scale production systems. We do two things predominantly at Intelygenz, and then I'll stop here probably and jump into examples because I think it's more interesting. But if you think about, if you want to think about or put in context what we do from a software perspective, we do two things. We automate process or we build product. That's it. They're the two things that we do for our clients. We elevate both of those through the application of artificial intelligence. Not always. We don't always apply AI to our projects, but more and more of our projects tend to have some form of artificial intelligence embedded within the solution. And therefore, we elevate the process automation to intelligent process automation, or the product builds that we've done to intelligent product, where they're using the data within the system to answer valuable questions that help extract even more value from the process or from the product. Intelygenz Labs, you can see on the left-hand side here, is a really broad description of everything that makes our company. It's what drives our culture, what drives our experimentation, it's what keeps us technology fit. We deploy open source capabilities into the marketplace from Intelygenz Labs. So really our foundation of everything we do starts in Intelygenz Lab. We hone it, we productionize it, and then we move it out as a technique into the marketplace. In terms of technical capabilities, we're extremely technical. 95% of our employees are actively coding, including the 4 founders. So we we know what we're good at. We stick to what we're good at. We have a great ecosystem around us for design thinking when it comes to products, product strategy, UI, UX design. We are moving a little bit further up the chain in terms of the process piece that we do. So we do have some people who are experts in process mapping and being able to understand where in the process automation can really extract value. One thing you'll see with process automation is the ROI and the predictions of value are very accurate. So it's highly predictable returns in process automation. You're not guessing on a marketplace. You're not guessing on how many people will buy your product. What you're doing is you're automating cost or automating quality into cost out of or capacity into your processes. And very, very quickly and very, very predictably, you can see very high returns on process automation. So you can imagine with the world we live in now in COVID, the process automation part of our business is going very, very fast into growth because our clients are looking for cost reduction. They're looking for capacity and productivity increases, and they're looking for quality improvements where you can flatten the margin. So I'll talk, I think right now is the time to talk about process automation. So I'll go into that a tiny bit. I'm not going to run through what a process is. You guys know what a process is. Quickly, the difference between process automation and intelligent process automation through the application of AI. In process automation, you can automate a lot of tasks, a lot of repetitive tasks. You don't need AI. There's no decisions being made. It's move this from here to here, move it. You know, I'm talking about data. We don't do robotics. So I'm not talking about physical moving, although we do a little bit of that, but predominantly we do moving about data. So moving this from here to here, automating this process, making this thing happen. It's about the automation of tasks. Tasks that don't need decisions, they're repetitive. You just want to automate that process from going through. In here, yes, we do still include some if then else statements, if this then that. Of course, there's some of that inside process automation, but anything in terms of complex decision making is not there. Oh, let me just see if I can get back to the presentation. My phone rang. There we go. With intelligent process automation, it's about automating task and decision. And you use artificial intelligence to automate decision making. So that's where you're replacing human cognitive capabilities in decision making in order to expand the process breadth and depth that is required in order to extract the value. So when you see a process map, you'll see there's a lot of tasks, and then the process automation will have to stop when a decision needs to be made in order to get it to the next stage. When you apply artificial intelligence, you can also automate that decision, and the breadth of that process expands significantly. The three hard reasons I talked about that our clients want to automate process is highly predictable reduction of cost, increased capacity, and improved quality. There are some side benefits, but the majority of clients want to take one of these three as a minimum, often all three of these things out of the process automation, and that's what we do. We do it through a very standard process. I'm not going to go into a deep dive, etc. What I'm going to do is I want to go to this presentation here and tell you guys a little bit, bring it to life a little bit about what do I mean by process automation. I'll pause for a second and you can tell me if there's any questions. Oh, let's reload. Any questions so far? Did that make sense? It was a bit rapid, I know.
Chris, I would have one question.
Sure.
Like as you just got to know that Intersport is a partnership, in that case where we are independent shop owners, and a big problem with that is that all the different shops use different programs. So not all Intersport do use the same inventory program or the same cash program. I think they all use the same rental program, yeah, but the other programs are still like something is on Excel, some things are on that program. Is that like a barrier, or is that something which can't be overcome?
So it's not so can it be overcome? Yes. Is it a barrier? Actually, yes to both. So a barrier is a bit of a hard word. Is it extra effort that would need to be made? Yes. Can you overcome it? Pretty easily. Software is very flexible. What we'd need to do is process map. What is the end process? Obviously, anything that's homogenized and is standard across the piece, significantly easier, right? But if we want to move data from, let me give you an invoicing process, right? I'll start with one of the most boring things, but profitable things for our clients that we do. When you automate an invoicing process, you have, I'll talk about a simple wholesaler. A wholesaler brings in a product, maybe a software product, maybe a physical product, doesn't matter. They'll take a whole load of wholesale invoicing in from a supplier, and they want to convert that to retail pricing, split it up, obviously, convert it to retail pricing, and then invoice their onward customers. We do a lot of that. It's not the most exciting thing to talk about, and we've got some more exciting things, but I think it's a good example of process automation. And what can happen is you've got different wholesale suppliers here. So we have multiple connectors that come in, and then some of the wholesale to retail providers, so the service providers in the middle, some of them invoice through Sage, some do it through Xero, some do it through any other program. I can't even think of another one. Most of them are on Sage or Xero, and therefore we create connectors here. The system here is exactly the same. The purpose is bring in an invoice, split it, reevaluate the pricing, send it out as an invoice. But how it does that, it can do it. It can send to Sage, it can send to Xero, it can send to Excel, it can send to anything. So you need to create those connectors, but the overall process map and the overall process that you're trying to achieve remains the same.
All right. So just as you're going to intelligent AI, right? And you said before, basically, as if I have a question and I want to have an answer, I go to you, right? I tell you I want to have this answer, and you go look in all my data to give me that answer, right? But that would require to create a data pool with all the different sources of the programs. Am I right with that? Or how do you usually do that? Do you create databases with where all the
we would crunch the data together. So when you're running actually I've got some diagrams in here. When you're putting an AI into production, the solution nearly every time, let's just call it most of the time, yeah, there's three major parts to an AI solution. The first one is called data transformation. So even if you're the same company, I can tell you the data sources from a pharmaceutical can be across 6 or 7 or 8 different databases. So the answer within the data is across, so it doesn't matter whether it's multiple ownership, who owns it commercially is not that important to us, right? Because we deal in data. So there are not many projects where you have a single data source. So your data transformations are happening on the front end. And data transformation is two things. It's the amalgamation of those data sets into a position where they can be used together. Then we'll often do some transformations even on that data. So there'll be things like, actually, we want to normalize one column between -1 and +1. We don't want to have all of these different variants. So we want to normalize that. Or we want to fill blank columns with zeros. So there's a lot of different data transformations that happen at the front end. So whether there's multiple ownership of that data or not, in an AI project, it happens anyway. Yeah, it happens anyway. So that's normal. Then the second phase is you have your models or your model stacking. So you can use a single model sometimes, but often it's, hey, I want to change the data in this way. Then I want to run this model. I want to take the output of that model. I want to put the data into a second model here. I want to take the output of that. Both of those outputs I'm going to put into a third model. So the data scientist will work through what the model stacking looks like in terms of being able to take the data input. And then the output is a post-process data transform. Is here are the answers. How do you want to absorb them within your business? Because a really important part is we can theoretically give you the answers, but if you can't absorb those answers in a way into your business process, then we've done a technical exercise, right? So you now need to transform that to say, well, where do you want to take this data? How do you want to absorb that into your business? Do you need that to be as a simple CSV file? does it, or for a call center, it needs to go and be plugged into the call center agent system, and therefore it's driving some of the decisions on the call center agent. For a bank, it's about, am I going to process this transaction or not? So you need to do the post-process. So there's pre-process transformation models, post-process. The fact you have multiple ownership here doesn't really make any difference, because we have to do it anyway in the majority of the time.
Thank you. So as I understand it, it would be possible. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
I could have just said, yes, it's possible.
No,
but
but
I'm not very
interesting.
good at short answers, Paul. I'm not very good at short answers.
It's interesting to understand, really. But thank you very much.
No worries. No worries. So I thought we'd just quickly run through some examples. I don't know why my my presentation is doing this. I've never done it before, but here we go. The first one is marketing. I thought this one might be interesting. These are in no order. These are in the same order they always are. But the first one was marketing. I think I'll go through this one because I think there's a lot of interest in marketing and finding new markets. So let me show this. So this was with a bank. This is an example. It's in production. It's working. It's one of the first, and Dieter, you might have heard me talk about this one prior. It's one of the first things we ever did. So it's a little older now, maybe 3, 4 years old. But it's in production, still working. And the aim with this one was, we were working with a large bank anyway. We were doing some product building and some process automation with them. And they came to us and said, we built a new product, and we tried to sell it. We looked at all of the different profiling out of our CRM, and we targeted 300,000 people. We had a budget to do an outbound campaign for 300,000. It was outbound physical mail, email, and outbound calling. And they said, so we picked the best 300,000 people, and we made 8,900 sales, and we were pretty disappointed with that. Now, I'm no marketing expert, but actually I thought that was a decent return for any campaign, right? I thought that was a decent return, 9,000, but they didn't. And they knew we were starting on AI. They knew we'd put a few things into production, and they said, hey, can you write an AI to better target our client base with this product? Because the 300,000 was from a medium list of, I think, just over 1 million, which had come from a long list of several million clients that they had within their database. Actually, their CRM was Salesforce, if I'm totally honest with you. That was, they were using Salesforce. And the answer to the question at the start of every AI project is always, I don't know. Because we don't know, right? At the start of every AI project, the difference between a standard software project and an AI project is, in an AI project, the majority of the answers at the beginning of the project are, we don't know. And if anybody tells you any different, then really start to probe them, because that is the reality of the situation. So is there any correlation within the data? I don't know. Is our data clean enough? I don't know. How much accuracy can I get? I don't know. What compute power will we need in order to run the models? I don't know, right? So very, very different starting point for a software project when you're running AI. So the answer is, we don't know, but you've got extremely good classified data. You've good labeled data because you ran a campaign. So we know who said yes and who said no, and therefore we've got great labeled data. So we should try. And that's what we did. And the process that I skipped over before is massively important. It's not important for this session, but it's important because it's a process that we've defined and refined over the last 5-6 years that allows a project to go from I don't know all the way through to production, mitigating time and money investment for our clients to the maximum. So we do a very, very staged process of removing the unknowns as fast as possible. And that's what we did in this project. So we trained a system, pre-processing of the data, did some model stacking, then provided the data back in terms of the targets. And they asked us to put together 300,000, the list of 300,000 people that we believed had a propensity to purchase their new product. And using the data that we found, or that we used, we couldn't find 300,000 people that would buy the product. So we couldn't find enough confidence in that list of people that had the propensity to purchase. Now, remember I said this is one of the first production solutions we ever put in place, and this is a big client of ours. So we're a bit worried about the answer, right? Because we had to go back and say we can't find 300,000 people, and that's a bit tricky, right? When someone's invested a lot of time and effort into a product, and we can't find people that want to buy it, and we don't want to be, we're just the messenger, right? But we have to trust the data, and you have, in AI, you often find some truths that you don't really want to find. And we had to go back and say, look, we can't find 300,000 people, but we found 156,000. So run your campaign on this 156,000 and see what happens. So they did. They sold 35,117, as you can see on the slide. It wasn't quite 4 times the sales with half the data, but it was pretty close. You can see they got a very, very big uplift in sales. And then they constantly train this model on new products in order to, as their products evolve, then they can continuously use the solution to adapt it to new products. One interesting thing on this, that's always worth talking about on this example, because it's an issue, or it's a feature. Maybe we'll call it a feature of AI. AI is getting better at being explainable. It's getting explainable. AI is still early on the hype curve of Gartner, if you're familiar with hype curves. It's early in the technology. Most AI is still black box, where it will give you answers that you want, but being able to explain the answers that it's giving is very difficult. And if you need to know why, then AI is pretty tricky. And there are some techniques and some things we can apply to understand the why, but it's even more difficult than the what. It takes longer than the what, right? Or who in this case. So the who, pretty simple. We executed this project in about 4 months, start to finish. We were done. They asked us why. Why did these people buy? And remember, with an AI, nobody has programmed the AI. It is self-taught and it's self-learned, and it's adjusted neurons within the, or fake neurons within its system. And it is then deciding who, and it will give you a very, very accurate response as to, in this case, who, or in some cases, what. But being able to explain it is very, very tricky, because we don't know why, because nobody programmed it. They asked us why, and it took us about 6 months to apply some techniques to backward engineer the clusters as to why people were choosing or not choosing the product. And there was a significant number of variables in terms of profile, in terms of time of day that you approach them, in terms of the call center they were using, in terms of the techniques they were using, in terms of the imagery they were using. So a lot hard for a human to find, but the AI can find those reasons. But we had to backward engineer it. So if you're in a regulated business, so we often in the US, we talk about credit score and lending and not lending based on credit score. Well, there's lots of people in the market, and banks know that have a poor credit score but are good clients for loans. And you could use an AI to find them. But it's a regulated decision that you need to explain why. And therefore, using AI, it can be done, but you've got to use it, and you've got to know that you need explainability in the AI before you do it. So that's a CRM marketing example. Any questions on that one? Make sense? I'm trying to think which would be the best examples. I've got energy, wind farm prediction. We've got, I don't know why I have to keep doing
I like the energy also because it relates to another topic that I've tackled during the tour.
Okay.
Where it's about
I love the energy one.
Cars as being a data mining device. So that's a good one.
Okay, I love this one too. I'm super proud of this one. So this was an energy producing company. It had a wind farm or 2 wind farms in Montana and headquartered here in San Francisco. And I learned a lot about the energy industry. So the energy industry in the US. So in the US, the way energy is sold, there are a number of tariffs, wholesale tariffs, and they're based on the predictability that you can achieve on putting megawatts onto the transmission lines. So the more predictable you are, the more you get per megawatt hour. And the less predictable you are, the less money you get. And in reverse, if you want to sell at the predictable rate, you must deliver the exact megawatts at that rate. Yeah, you can't under deliver and you can't over deliver. And you can see where this is going, right? That is a very simple process for a nuclear or coal powered or gas powered power station. Because how many shovelfuls of coal I put on the fire, or how much gas I turn into the furnace, or how many uranium rods I drop into the reactor, is a very, very controllable, very predictable process, and therefore you can control how many megawatts you're producing very accurately every hour. And you need to do this on an hourly basis. So every hour you have to say how many megawatts you're going to put on the transmission line. And every hour you must predict that 135, an hour and a quarter in advance. But you have to do it to the end of the hour. So it's 135 minutes in advance at the start. Now you can imagine in a wind farm, they are very unpredictable, even less predictable than solar. Significantly less predictable than solar, actually. And they have to play very conservatively up here in the high margin megawatts, and then they play down here, because if they underproduce, then they have to buy electricity from a secondary market at enormous rates. So basically there are loan sharks in the energy market willing to sell you surplus at enormous rates and just throw it away if you don't ask for it. And that becomes very, very, very risky. So they need to predict, and the better they can predict, the higher up the revenue chain they can play, up the margin chain they can play. And they have 19, this particular company had 19 meteorologists and scientists in a operating center, looking at satellite data, weathers, wind predictions. And what they would do is they would be predicting wind up ramps and wind down ramps. And if they could predict the up ramps and the down ramps, they then had algorithms and methodologies to put to understand what the output of the field would be in 135 minutes time. And they asked the question, hey, can we use AI to be better at this? And there's some interesting things about this project that you guys should know. So we started the conversation with, guess what? I don't know if we can or not, but you have great data and we should try, right? So we go through the methodology, we start with the discovery, and we start to look at the data. And the data that they had was data that was aggregated over 5 minutes on each turbine in the field. And we set our data scientists, and we knew what the historic production of the field was. So they had all of that. So they had all of the historic production of the field available. So that wasn't a problem. So we could start to run models and start our data scientists looking for correlation within that data to predict the output of the farm, the wind farm. And the result was this. So we had 83% accuracy, 135 minutes in advance, which was massively uplifted on what they could achieve with 19 people sitting in a room. The prediction was it would increase their revenue by 36% at 135-minute prediction levels. So for doing nothing different, just playing with confidence in revenue tariffs that were above where they currently were. And you look at this and you say, wow, pretty amazing result. Let me tell you two things. Firstly, a little bit of the science behind it. We found that turbines in the field had great partners. And what you could do is you could predict based on this turbine over 5 minutes what would be happening on other turbines. That was a significant finding, scientific data finding that we found in here that enabled us to get the accuracy above. This never went to production. Didn't go to production. And it was for no technical reason at all. And this is another great learn about AI. What we did was we predicted the power output of the field to an accuracy level of 83%, so they could increase all the way up 83% of their energy production to the high prediction, and then they could use the other tariffs for the rest of the energy. And what we didn't do, and what we couldn't do, was predict up ramps and down ramps of wind. And the 19 people sitting in the room said, no, that's what we need. And we were like, no, that's not what you need. That's a secondary measure that you're using to get your end goal. You don't need that. And we're not very good. It turned out AI was really not very good at predicting up ramps and down ramps of wind. But we could predict the exact output of the field, which is the answer that they wanted. And we couldn't get over the fact that we couldn't do up ramps and down ramps and move the business from a mentality to accept the answer of AI. And there was a double fight. One was, you imagine you're sitting in a room of 19 people that you're not needed anymore. So the change management and the human aspects of change management and being able to accept the answers of the AI was just resisted to a point where it became uneconomical to continue with the project. And there was nothing wrong with the answer. And this company still does not have the advantage of using AI to do their predictions of energy. It's so sad, so sad. But the technology is not the barrier, but having the mentality of change management and being able for your organization to have the leadership to take you through the change management. I talked about when we're talking about the transformation of data and being able to pump that output in a way that the company can absorb it. Well, we couldn't find a way for this organization to absorb these answers from a human mentality perspective, and it was resisted really highly. But technically, you can predict the output of a wind farm. We were super proud of this one. We really enjoyed the challenge. Very, very difficult challenge. It's highly unpredictable, but it worked. But it worked well. But yeah, you need to be conscious of change management, and human change management needs great leadership for the absorption of AI into your business. It's not just about the technology. I'll just pause a second and see if there's any questions on that one. Did it make sense? Follow? Yeah.
Of course, it makes sense. The question is just how we could use AI in our daily business. You know, we're renting out. I mean, if I stick with the rental,
yeah,
we're renting out skis, we're renting out bikes, and so it's very, very difficult for me to find a case where we can really use AI.
Okay, let's have a conversation about that rather than me talking about space exploration or something like that, right? The way to target the applicability of AI is think about process automation. Think about what are the biggest pain points in your business? What costs you money? Forget about AI, forget about everything, right? What are the things that cost me money within my organization or stop me growing my business, right? What are those key aspects? Do I have too many skis sat on the shelf too often? I'm over investing in capital and they're not getting rented. So a bit like in it. This is how we work in Intelygenz. So for me, skis on the shelf and airplanes on the ground, same thing for me, right? It's the same thing. Doesn't matter, right? Because when skis aren't being skied on, they're not being paid for. When airplanes aren't being flown, they're not being paid for, right? So what are the big pain points within your business where you think, how do I increase my productivity? How do I increase my capacity? How do I reduce costs? And it goes back to those things. How do I increase quality, right? Is it about repairs take too long because I don't predict them early enough? I don't know, because I just turn up, I rent skis, you guys do an amazing job, I go have a great week, and then I come back down and give you the skis back, right? And it just looks seamless to me, right? And that's a great thing, right? But it's about how do you identify those things? So we have an AI Academy. I didn't talk about the AI Academy, right? So one thing that you guys might want to think about is running an AI Academy, which is a 1 to 3 day session, right? We don't do so many 3 days, but where the first day is all about what is the reality, not what's Hollywood versus the reality of AI. How do you spot within your business? How do you prepare your business technically and from a change management mindset to absorb AI in order to extract value within your business? We normally walk out of those sessions and our clients end up with 30 to 60 use cases of, right, this is what we should be doing. We should be doing this. And it's a whole day. It's the first day is non-technical as we get, right? But you need no technology. You need no capabilities. You don't need to be able to code. You need to understand your business. And it's about talking, how do you think about AI? What can it do? What can it not do? What are global minimums about versus local minimums? Should we care about them? How do you trigger on ROI? And spotting all of those places. But on the whole, it's about what questions that if you could answer would fundamentally change your business. And that's where and just take technology out of your head altogether. That's the question you have to ask yourself as a business owner. What hurts me the most? Or where am I missing the opportunity the most? Have you got any examples that come to mind?
If I would know the most wanted slopes and ways where people want to ski, and when will they want to ski on those preferred slopes, I would better understand when to prepare which skis. Or in bicycles, it's even wilder because it's so new for us. All the downhilling and all the e-biking. The e-bikes, they cost 3,000 euros up, and we rent out e-bikes. And do I need 50 or do I need 150 e-bikes? These are huge problems for us in terms of budgeting. If I know how many I need on which day and which e-bike do I need, I could budget easier, and I could put my money on the point where I need it. So now I have to guess what is happening next year. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's a classic future prediction, right? So if you've got ticketing data, I'm assuming maybe you can get it from the slopes. You've got a relationship with the guys of what tickets have you sold, what season tickets have you sold, what weekly tickets have you sold, who's coming in on aeroplanes that week, right? Where are they coming from? There's a whole plethora of data, right? The Dutch love to ski bike. The Brits just want to go fast on skis and break their legs. I don't know, whatever, right? And so you've got a whole set of data coming in. There will be correlation within that data historically that will answer those questions.
Can I add one more question? I think Dieter knows better, but I think only 3 to 5% of all the people in Europe ski. So if I could ask the 95%, why aren't you skiing? I could maybe bring so many more people into skiing, and I could use maybe all the off-season times, like January, when all the slopes are set up, all the system is running, and we have empty slopes. I could fill those gaps with skiers that have not tried it, and evaluate the prices so they come in, and always full. The winter is so short. We have 100 days of winter, and 50 days we are not using because people don't have holidays, and other people don't even know that they would like to ski, but we don't know to ask them, or we don't know how to advertise. So those are things to think about maybe with AI.
So all of those, AI will not, AI can help support you with a marketing campaign, for sure. You've seen that. In terms of who to advertise to, when I think there's no silver bullet, right? I'm not going to pretend this is not Hollywood, right? AI is extremely good at answering specific questions. So if you said, what is the biggest group of people that don't ski, right? It can probably go and find that answer. How you advertise and how you creatively appeal to that human being to come and ski and to make them come and ski is still not in AI territory, right? That's still not AI territory. Answering very, very defined questions is AI territory, right? Answering very defined questions. The same, if I go back to the marketing example I gave for the bank, we didn't tell them what product they had to go and sell. We told them who would buy it, yeah, and who wouldn't. Now they have to tweak that product. It's the same with advertising. Is I'll tell you who will buy, who won't, based on I'm going to do this advertising if you've done a spin of that before. So it's looking for correlation in historic data sets. But the first one that you talked about, supply and demand, I think you have all of that data. I think you have all of that data over years and years and years and years. Maybe not for bikes because it's a new thing, right? But you've got certainly a number of years of bikes. But for skis, you've got years and years and years of data. You've got years of access to ticketing data. If you can get access to aeroplane flight information, this is where you need to partner and buy data and find ways to get data. Maybe you don't even need that. But they are when you're asking what are the things I should be thinking about, forget the technology. Is what problem would fundamentally change my business if I could solve it? And if it's supply and demand, then I honestly believe you would have the data sets. You can't see the correlation because it's too complex, but I think you'd have the data sets to be able to identify the supply and demand, at least to some increased level than you do today, and be able to say, do you know what, weather's good in Kitzbühel today. Even on the back of that, you might want to put different processes of the weather's good in Kitzbühel, it's not very good in Verlag, that's probably too far, but the weather's good in Kitzbühel, it's not very good in Hofgarten, right? Therefore, why don't we move all the ski bikes from Hofgarten to ski, and I'll give you a deal between the shops and whatever that looks like, right, on the back end, in order to maximize the utility of the equipment, right, without over investing in. Does Intersport have any, this is where I need to be careful, does Intersport have any upside in investing in equipment, or would Intersport prefer to invest in the least amount of equipment and have it utilize the maximum amount of time?
Well, I think it's more a quality approach, to have the best equipment and make the most out of it. It's not
volume. Sorry, I was talking volume. Great equipment, obviously, because you want clients to have great equipment. But in terms of volume, you'd rather keep your volume of equipment to the lowest to meet the demand of the client. Yeah. I think that's an absolute classic artificial. I think you have the data to answer that question even better than you do today. The real answer is I don't know, because I've never seen the data, right? I don't know the problem. But I think it's something you should seriously consider thinking about. How do I look at historic ticket sales, understand what future ticket sales look like at this point in time? Because remember, ticket sales will increase, and obviously you don't know the end result until the day of ticket, right? Even the afternoon, because you can sell an afternoon ticket. So you're predicting all the way in terms of what that looks like. So you might want to make a prediction knowing a week before ticket sales look like this. We know the curve often looks like this. It's going to end up here. Therefore, if I make a prediction the week before, I need 1 week, 2 days, 3 days to operationally have the right equipment in the right place, because I'm going to do some trading between stores to have the right equipment in the right place. And that takes me 3 days. So I need to make my prediction minimum 3 days before, and then I need a logistics process to move it. I'm making up. You might never move equipment between stores.
But Chris, if I block out the moving, bring in, like you mentioned, the skis from Hofgarten to Kitzbühel or vice versa.
I made that up. That might be totally rubbish.
But it could predict that next Saturday I need 50 pairs in length 163 with and out of that I need 20 with binding set number 7 for the setting, and that boot length or whatever, and this could be prepared, right?
Yeah. If the data exists. Look, the answer is I don't know, but you've just got so much data, historic data, that there is likely to be some correlation. that you can have a percentage of your skis set and ready. So that's, I mean, it's a different problem, right? Set and ready is a different problem to quantity of which type. Two different problems, right? So let me be clear again. AI answers very specific questions. They are two different solutions. One is set and ready, and one is what equipment do I want? I know they're closely related, but they're different questions to the AI. They may use some of the same data as input, but I honestly believe that you just must have years and years of data, right? And even over the years, what's interesting is let's say we take 20 years from 2000 onwards, you'll even see seasonal variations, right? Or seasonal increases in this kind of trends. And you'll see those over time, and you can future predict those. And the model can take that into consideration as well, right? So there'll be weather pieces that make this happen. There'll be trends over time where it's doing this or it's doing this. Nobody wants this kind of ski anymore, and everyone wants this, and people want e-bikes. And the model will see those trends and consider those trends and start to input them in as well. You won't know how it does it, but you don't really care, do you? It's not regulated. It's about operational efficiencies. You don't care why someone wants an e-bike or not. You just want to have the equipment there, you know? So for sure, that is something I would be seriously considering if that is, and I imagine it is, the same as airplanes. One of the biggest things you want to do is have everything utilized as much as possible all of the time.
Chris, I have another question. If Hans, if that is okay for you, if your question is answered, I have another question. In terms of marketing, what Hans asked for to know why 95% of the Europeans are not skiing could be more like reading cards, but in our villages, and you mentioned some of them, there are so many people, and I think the most important key is how to bring more into our shops than they visit other stores, so that they walk by our competitors and enter the Intersport stores. Is there any in terms of marketing where you would see some connecting dots from data we could get somewhere? I have no idea, but that would be the key to.
Have you ran historic campaigns to this target audience? So I'm going back to what we want is labeled data. So I ran a campaign. These are the results I had, right? What it can tell you is knowing. So if you know, are you talking about, let me be clear, you're talking about marketing to local people that live in that village, or you're talking about visitors?
I'm talking about visitors. You coming to Hopfgarten. How do I reach you? How do I get you into the Intersport store and not to our competitor store?
Okay, so I'm going to split it in two parts again, okay? Knowing who comes into your store and the types of people that come into your store, we would take that data and we would output, and then if you've got a list of, if you have a way of reaching a certain audience, we can say, go target these people. I can get more of those people. What we haven't got a way to do right now that I can think of, but let me think about it for a bit longer, is the campaign type you want to run. So you're appealing to these people, but you're not appealing to these people. The campaign type you want to run looks like this, because that's going to appeal to these people. We don't have a model that can do that right now.
But we have data. We have thousands of data on that, because when you rent skis, then you have to give us all the data to fix the binding, how old you are.
So you know who buys, right? So you know that. So we can tell you who comes to your store. But you probably have a very good idea from data analytics without any AI of who comes to your store, right? You probably know your audience that's coming to the store, right? We appeal to people who want great equipment, willing to spend a little bit more money for it, or in this age bracket, come from these places, right? I think in your business intelligence, you probably have all of that data. And if not, we can analyze that for you, right? For sure, that can happen. And we can say, look, your target audience looks like this, and here's your clusters. In fact, what we can also do, what's interesting, and I didn't go through it for the Zara case, was they wanted to know clusters of different types, and they didn't know how to cluster, right? So they had all this data, but they didn't know how to put these clusters of customer type. They were actually doing it for fraud, not for purchase, but it doesn't matter, right? And what you could do is run something called unsupervised learning over all of your data that says, did you know you have a cluster here, a cluster here, a cluster here, and a cluster here? And then you go back and you look at those clusters and say, hey, I never knew we had big clusters of people. I thought it was just people who were 45 to 65. What it turns out was it was any age, but they come from these parts of the country, and you find clusters of people that you didn't know. And then you can say, well, why don't we go after that as a marketing campaign? I don't know how to put a marketing campaign together because we're technologists that aim to those people, but I can tell you the people to aim at. I can tell you the clusters of people that will be attracted to Intersport. And then if you have the knowledge, the skills, the marketing capabilities, say, well, I know how to target those kind of people, I do this kind of thing, then those two things in combination can make that work.
Because it could be just to be in origin, country, and age. It could be in Kitzbühel, the Germans from at the age of 40. In Maria Alm, it could be the Dutch.
And you'll find those clusters.
27.
So AI can find those clusters. But putting the marketing count, once you know the clusters, it's back to the marketing team to do their skills, the talent of this is what you need to do. But that for sure is worth a look. So I think this is what I mean about an AI Academy. We've done what, 20 minutes, and we've got 3, right? You've got set and fit, you've got utility of ski, and you've got how do I understand the clusters of who's coming into my stores and how do I target them more heavily with offers and things that will appeal to them. That's 3 in 20 minutes. Okay. I hope that made some sort of sense anyway.
The brain
processing silence.
I can see. No, that's why you leave it, right? Because you can see that the cogs are going. The cogs are going. So I'm out of time, Nikki. Apologies. Enjoyed the conversation. I didn't drop the mic. I could have.
Thank you so much for taking this time.
I love all the places where you're at. I love them all. My first ever skiing I did in Valak was, I remember when I did it as a school trip on the bus from Northeast England. It took a long time to get there, a really long time. But it was really fun. It was really fun. I had a super time. And then I've never stopped going back, but I haven't been in Austria for 4 years. 4 years. We have Tahoe on the doorstep here, and it's nice. But the après-ski is like, come on, no way.
There is no après-ski. The only thing in Tahoe that's unbeatable is going skiing on July 4th.
Yeah, we've had a couple of crazy years where the snow's just lasted till July, but it's not the same as skiing in the Alps. It's just not the same. There's no Schlager music, right? It's like, well, there's no skiing without Schlager music, right? It just doesn't exist.
Thank you so much for taking time.
It's a pleasure. I
recorded the session as usual. That's internally for Intersport. Dieter will be introed again. Test waters, take it from there. I feel like there must be something. That's why I changed the program actually to have you in this week. Because I feel like there's
and it's not a super, just to be clear, the process is to keep it small until you know. Right, so you minimize and mitigate time and risk and money investment in the process. So if you think there's something that has some value of, it's going to save, a couple of $100,000, $300,000, then you should start to think about, if you have questions that the answers will save that kind of money, you really have an obligation to, with us or with anybody else, you have an obligation to start thinking about the application of AI for that challenge.
Also, just for Chris to bring him back to the mountains, to
bring
recalibrate him to
back
Austrian
I'll
mountains.
do super good pricing if I can go to the mountains. Super good pricing.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Amazing session.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Thanks,
one.
Chris.
Bye.
Bye.